Welcome to your Artsy Girl podcast. I am your host, Christina Carrere. This is a podcast about art, poetry, writing, and anything about creativity. Sit back, relax, and get your dose of brain food to get your creative juices flowing. Welcome to episode 32. Today's featured guest is Luisa Kay Reyes. She has had pieces featured in The Raven Chronicles, The Windmill, The Foliate Oak, The Eastern Iowa Review, and other literary magazines. Her essay, Thank You, is the winner of the April 2017 memoir contest of the Dead Mule School of Southern Literature. And her Christmas poem was a first place winner in the 16th annual Stark County District Library Poetry Contest. Additionally, her essay, My Border Crossing, received a Pushcart Prize nomination from the Port Yonder Press, and two of her essays have been nominated for the Best of the Net anthology, with one of her essays recently being featured on the Dirty Spoon Radio Hour. Please welcome my next featured guest, Luisa Kay Reyes. Hi, Luisa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for reaching out and agreeing to talk with me today. Before we get into your work a little more, can you tell me a little more about yourself? Like, where were you born and where you grew up?
Yes. My name, of course, is Luisa, and I was born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay.
But my mother just flew back to the States to have me, and then flew right back to Mexico City. So I actually lived in Mexico City until I was 10 years old, and then we moved back. It's kind of crazy. I feel like all my life I've been hopping back and forth between countries.
Right. So how was it like growing up that way, between two cultures? Because I can kind of relate to that. So how did that shape you?
Oh, I think it has shaped me 100%. It gives me a broad perspective. I see things that are important universally, and people always like to celebrate life through people's birthdays. It gives you broad perspective and sort of I think as a writer, especially gives you sort of an ability to analyze the world more deeply. How we writers analyze and analyze.
Don't we? We do analyze a lot. So Mexico City, how is that like?
Well, when I was there, it was the largest city in the world. Now it's not even close. Some of those Indian cities, and I think even some of the Chinese cities are vastly larger. But
right.
When I was there, it was one of the largest cities in the world. And it was very nice, very unique because it has a Latin flavor, but also a touch of the European influence.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this contrast between the high culture and the impoverished element that unfortunately does exist. So it was very fascinating. It was, at the time, I didn't really realize that it was unique. It was just home.
Yeah, right. So have you done any stories in that setting?
Very much so. I've written a lot of personal essays centered around my experiences growing up in Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So who were your earlier influences?
As far as writing and reading?
Yeah, writing or anything, really.
Well, one of my earliest influences was Nancy Drew. I was a huge Nancy Drew fan growing up, and I still enjoy a good cozy mystery, especially Nancy Drew style. There's just something Carolyn Keene, or the actual author Mildred Wirt Benson, she really just had the young girl detective mystery story figured out.
Yeah.
And so I really loved those books growing up, and that was an influence. And then I'm actually very girly. Also Jane Austen. Huge Jane Austen fan. I especially love her eloquent dialogue.
In fact, I did grow up with Nancy Drew mysteries myself.
Oh, Great.
Oh my gosh. What was the one that stuck with me? Something in the stairwell. It's always the stairwell. Something in the stairwell. And the Hardy Boys, right? The Hardy Boys. Is it the Hardy Boys with Nancy Drew?
Yeah, the Hardy Boys were sort of the equivalent for the boys, but I never read a Hardy Boy.
Right. That's interesting. So, Jane Austen, yeah, I love those period pieces. You know, I'm always drawn to that. And even now, like Downton Abbey, I definitely want to see that movie. I've seen the whole series in almost one sitting. I've binged out on it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I was on Facebook earlier today, and I swear every friend I had on there was forwarding the preview for the movie and talking about how they can't wait till it comes out.
It's something about that. And plus that long prose, you know, that never ending sentence, though, that type of writing that always draws me in, you know, even to this day. Yeah. You know what I've done? I went to the library recently and I didn't have any particular author in mind or anything, but what I did, I went through the stacks. I picked out random books, right? And I just opened up into the middle or whatever and just start reading. And I was like, I definitely have a style. I definitely have a taste. You know, it's like, nah, I just don't like that kind of writing. I don't like the straightforward, although I do like Hemingway. I just don't like the straightforward type of writing. I definitely like some complexities.
I like the elegance and just the sophisticated. I like the sophisticated feel of the more intricate writing style, like Jane Austen. Makes me feel like I'm transported to a more elegant world.
That's what it is. That's what it is. How did you get into writing, and how long have you been writing?
You know, it's quite ironic because growing up and going through school, I was always the top in my class in math. So I was always considered more of a math person. And it wasn't until one year I was glancing online, actually looking for dance auditions or something like that. And I came across a contest that they were having. It was called an Alabama State Limerick Writing Contest. And I knew that my grandfather wrote limericks. So I originally sent the notice of the contest to him. And he didn't want to enter it. Oh. And I was kind of taken aback by that because I knew he was an expert in writing limericks. And so I was so taken aback by it that I decided to look it up online, how to write a limerick. And I don't know, I guess what I looked up was written in a very mathematical fashion, counting out the syllables and that sort of thing, that it just sort of clicked in me. I was like, I'm going to try this. And so I just started writing limericks nonstop for a while after that. Okay. And I submitted them to the contest, and they loved them. And eventually, my grandfather did decide to enter. Yeah. And he won.
He won.
I got honorable mention. And
yay.
I was just so excited that I got that because they even said they had professional poets, professional writers enter the contest. And it just sort of went to my head that I got honorable mention, that I got hooked on writing poetry after that.
You got the bug. You got the bug after that. And so it evolved, I'm sure, right? And so you started doing long prose and stuff. Can you tell us about like how did you start with that, and where are you at now?
Well, after I started writing limericks and I started writing poems, and I was living in Ohio at the time, and I entered the Stark County District Library Poetry Contest. And the first year I got published, and then the next year I received first place. And so then after that, I just started wanting to write more and more. And I I came across an article about Rick Bragg, and how he likes to paint a picture when he writes a story. And it inspired me to write a story. And I actually didn't get that one published right away, but it got me started writing nonfictional essays. And so then I just started writing them like almost as though I were in a frenzy. I just, every day I would think of something to write about it.
Wow.
And then I started trying my hand at fiction, and it's been lots of fun. Fiction at first was more of a challenge for me, but I joined the Jane Austen Society. They were starting a program, I guess you would call it, of trying to revive the old-fashioned art of letter writing, because letters are so important in Jane Austen's stories. So I signed up for it, and I ended up with Jane Austen pen pals in Canada and in Texas. And one of my Canadian Jane Austen pen pals is also a writer, and a very good one, much more advanced in her writing career than I am. And she's given me a lot of writing tips for prose, how to write character sketches and a basic outline, and that has really helped me.
It's on Facebook. Someone forwarded or posted something about the art of letter writing is practically gone. And, I've always wanted to. I love to collect nice letter paper, letterhead, or note cards, but I never had anybody. I'm like, I collect these. I don't know who to send them to, So, but that's interesting. Is that still around, the Jane Austen pen pals?
Yeah. Well, I've had these same pen pals for a while now, but I believe so. I can forward you. My pen pal is the one in charge of it, and one of my pen pals, I should say, and I can send you her email address.
Oh, that would be so awesome. So do you do long writing? You do in your cursive writing, right? You don't type it out on. Do you?
I write it out in cursive. Several pages. I usually start off with pretty paper, and then I run out, so I end up tearing sheets of line paper from my notebook and finishing it on that. We really enjoy it. It's fascinating.
I used to remember getting, letters in the mail, that people have written, and it's like, the joy of opening that, like a letter is gone. We get bills, but that's no fun.
Yeah. Nobody wants. Those are the things you don't want to open. No. Yeah, it's very nice. Because some of my pen pals, we also send each other emails, and it's fun. But I noticed there is a difference between the old-fashioned letter writing. We just discuss a broader range of topics.
Right.
Yeah, it's really nice. It takes a surprisingly amount of time to write a letter.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
We don't have the backspace. We don't have autocorrect.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm going to explore that more, because I think people should try to rekindle that a little, if they've been in the past when they did that, or just discover what it is like to write an actual letter and send an actual letter out to someone, not just a birthday card or anything like that, but I mean, a thoughtful letter.
Yeah, exactly. I enjoy it. I'm really amazed at how the pen pals I've gotten, they are so involved in so many different things. And my pen pal, sometimes she tarries a little in writing me back, which, is no problem. But she'll apologize for it. And then I read all the things she's been doing, and I'm like, don't you dare apologize. I'm just amazed you can do so much.
But it's also, how people keep journals, right? So it's almost an act of journal writing, almost. If you think of it, before the internet and all that. And when artists and writers write to each other, that's how they describe maybe their challenges, or, that's how they kind of like work their problems out sometimes amongst each other. They didn't have the forums online like we do now, or Facebook, or a podcast. And there's the permanency almost of letter writing. But anyways, do you happen to have any work or like poems or an excerpt of something you'd like to share with us?
Yes, I do. I have a poem that was recently published in the Startled by Joy anthology. Mm-hmm. And I got a lot of compliments on it from my friends, like really sincere compliments on it. So I thought I would share it with you. I'll give you a little bit of background information. I was doing an internship in D.C. one summer, and D.C., all the buildings there, they're just lined with marble floors. Everything is marble. And I had grown up singing this aria from the operetta The Bohemian Girl. Okay. And in that aria, she talks about how I dreamt I dwelt in marble halls. And it's a very beautiful aria, but one day as I was walking down those marble floors and it just felt like my knees were starting to hurt, I thought to myself, I don't want marble halls. I want plush carpet. So it inspired me to write this poem, and it just kind of talks about my relationship with the aria and how I still do like it. So it's called Flows Out Like a Stream. I dreamt that I dwelt in marble halls and hosted some elegant balls. Yet when Christmas came and then went, the halls had too pricey a rent. To boast of a high ancestral name and all of the society snobs to tame would mean I'd ignore DNA, saying we're Clement anyway. I had riches too great to count, would involve quite an act to mount. That I was the hope and the pride makes my brother fit to be tied. Though not a princess like Arlene, I feel I know what Balf doth mean. For my mother loves me still the same, which shows that she is quite a dame. While I'm not the bohemian girl, with a noble knight who'll call me Pearl, I still relate to the maiden's dream, and the song flows out like a stream.
I definitely see Jane Austen and all that. I love it. Thank you. What are your current projects and future goals right now? I
was actually trying to think of some Christmas holiday themed stories to write earlier today. I always like to get into Christmas, and I know right now we still have the summer heat hasn't yielded to fall yet.
I know.
It's hard to think about Christmas, but you kind of have to do it a little early. And I was toying with the idea, trying to come up with themes for some Christmas short story.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that you did quite a bit of Christmas-themed stories. Mm-hmm. Is it just a tradition you do each year, or what are your goals with that?
Well, I think it's mainly because I grew up, my grandfather was a church organist, and we would go up to visit him in Ohio, and it was always a long trip for us to do so, because we were usually either in Mexico City or in Alabama or Georgia, just very far away. And he was the type of person, he would get a little nervous about things. And so Christmas was always a time for him that, he would get a little bit nervous because they would do the Christmas cantatas and all these Christmas programs. But there was just something magical about the way his church would do it, because they would have the candlelight service, and the way they did it, it was really impacting because it was really dark inside. I've been in some churches now that do it, and they still have the PowerPoint screens lit up. So you don't get the feel of the contrast between it being pitch dark and the candlelight in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that just impacted me so much when I was little. I always want to recapture that.
Right. The magical feeling. You write, and you also, are you a singer?
I do. I sing as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What kind of singing? What kind of vocalist?
I do opera and classical singing. I perform around town a lot. I have various programs that I've put together that I perform at a lot of the assisted living communities. And I went through a big Irish phase, and I have a Celtic program that I do that's a lot of fun. I love it. and then I do different summer concerts. It's mostly classical repertoire, or if I do some kind of traditional melodies, I do them in a classical way.
So what, are you a soprano?
I am. I'm a lyric soprano. I have a very big voice. That's what everybody tells me. I have a very big voice.
Wow. Yeah, so you mentioned some aria, so I was thinking, that's, I kind of figured it was classical.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Do you play any instruments?
I do. I play the piano. I've been playing the piano since I was a little girl, and I still love it.
Good. So can you tell me, I'm just curious, living in Mexico and then in Alabama and traveling about in the U.S., what do you identify the most with between the two?
It depends on the day.
Yeah. Okay.
One time I was visiting some cousins of mine in Mexico City, and they said we were listening to some mariachis, the Mexican singers, and I was really getting into it.
Yeah.
And my cousin told me, he was like, you're very gringified until you hear mariachi music, and then the cactus comes out in you.
So you speak Spanish, right? You speak Spanish?
I do. I speak Spanish and German and Latin and some Portuguese. So
how did you get about learning to speak all those languages?
My mother is a foreign language teacher, and she always emphasized foreign languages ever since we were little. And in Mexico City, the tradition is for people to go to a foreign language school. Most people go to an American school to learn English. But since we had that with my mother at home, she put us in the German school, so we would learn German. So my early schooling was actually half day in German and half day in Spanish. And then we actually lived in Brazil for close to 6 months, and I was Portuguese there. And then with me kicking and screaming, my mother has dragged me into learning how to speak Latin, but I actually like it. I enjoy it. So I'm glad that I've learned.
So you had such a classical education practically.
Oh, I've never thought of that, but I think you're right.
Yes. Well, with the music and the languages, and you're good at math. So, and now writing and literature, you're very well. Right.
Sometimes it takes somebody to put things in perspective for you, and you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but you're very right.
This is why I love to talk to people, because it's get to learn a lot, and a lot of intersections of one person's story to another, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember when that other person said this, or couple that with all the life experiences. And that's why I think having the discussions about art and creativity and literature, not only that, but it's the whole person. I like to talk to the whole person, because I think where you grew up and where you come from is a starting point.
Right.
And all those experiences that shape us. So I grew up overseas, different cultures, and I bring it over here to the United States. And so I'm learning about others that were kind of like me. But oh my gosh, well, I definitely follow you and your work as you continue on creating. Post up some your bio and the show notes and everything, and so that everybody else can follow you and learn more about you as well.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Exciting.
Well, Luisa, it's been great talking to you and learning more about you. I wish you the very best of luck with your work, and do stay in touch, okay?
Well, thank you. It's one thing I've really enjoyed about writing is being involved with the writing community and meeting other writers. Everybody's so interesting, and so far everybody I've met has been very supportive, and
yes, we have to be. I mean, who else is not? I mean, we're the ones that are, kind of like have to work in our own little bubble almost, and we have to reach out to each other and support each other, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'll send you my pen pal's email and let her know that you'll be contacting her.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's a writer too, so you might be interested in having her on your show as well.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
And she apparently lives in a very rural part of Canada.
Oh, wow.
You only get mail once a month.
No way. I definitely have to talk to her.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Just because of that. That's just amazing.
I know. It's fascinating. And she has cougar sightings and everything. I didn't realize it, but they have a lot of cougars in Canada.
Oh, gosh.
I always, for some reason, I thought cougars would be like in the Sahara or something like that.
Yeah.
Now they
I
have
don't
a
know
lot
my
of
animals too well, but yeah.
Yeah. I'll send you her email. And,
I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, everyone, that is it for now. Please tune in next week for my next featured guest. In the meantime, have a productive and creative week. Bye, Luisa.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.